Hello everyone and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings. Yes, we're back once again with Ramblings. You all know the drill, you know how this goes. I mean, we're up to 122 of these bloody things now. So you all know how this shit works out. Please leave your hand grenades by the door. This is a hand grenade free zone. You all know how this works.
Pipe bomb.
No problems. No pipe bombs. I don't care how much you want them, Moe. No pipe bombs.
Dude.
I know you like pipe bombs, but no.
Dude.
Yes. Okay, that's that. And the final thing I need to do is if it's actually come up. I forgot to do the setup before it all started, so I'm just having to sort of kind of do it.
On the fly.
Yep. There's a lot happening this month, so I'm kind of... Like, I'm kind of all up, you know... There we go. Job's a good one. What's this? Well, we'll have to see what happens. Right. Hello, Stephen Mayer. Nice to see you. So we'll start Patreon questions as we always do. From Team Locker on Patreon. What is the most interesting thing in the British Canal network that used an interesting solution to get the job done? Well, I'm not an expert on the canals, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. But if we're talking about the classical canal network, the thing about it wasn't so much that it was... I suppose you could argue the first use of proper large-scale long-distance tunneling in human history that wasn't into a hill to get minerals, but was a tunnel meant to last for as long as it was needed, and was purely something you travel through. I'd argue that would probably be the most innovative thing the canals ever did. Basically. Well, yes, I know. I know, Timu. I know. I'm aware of that. They are still extant, some of them. And some of them are still in use. So I suppose it's time for the next question. Which we don't have. For the first time in ages, there are no Ramblings questions. Wow. That's a shocking revelation. It probably is. There's no
I
night.
think it's just mostly down to the fact that people are not around yet.
There's no night. Well, this is the normal start time for the last 3 weeks. I mean, if they want to give me a night off, I'll take a night off. I don't mind.
Ew.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Fleet could do with a night off. I wish to blow things up in spectacular fashion. Besides, I have Hoi 4 mods to poke. Oh, actually, I tell you what. I'll make the announcement. I'll make an announcement now here. So yeah, for those who don't know, who might have missed it, I'm actually going to be at TwitchCon. Probably just on Saturday, the 30th of May, where I'll be sitting on a panel with Dr. Clark, Killer Bin, and Garius the Brit. Which I still can't quite believe is happening, but it's true. Yeah, I'm gonna be there doing that. So if any of you are in the Netherlands and have tickets to TwitchCon and want to listen to me ramble in person, along with 4 other people who you may or may not know, then yeah. Please do.
I guess people are also not here because you're starting at the same time as Dr. Clark's Patron Live.
Oh.
Although I don't think he's actually live yet. He may be a bit late.
Panel's view of today's elections in the UK, I couldn't care less. I legitimately couldn't care less. As in, quite literally, I could not. I just could not care. It fundamentally doesn't matter. Yeah, that would... All of my regular audience is at Dr. Clark's. Oh, hang on. I'm gonna summon somebody.
Oh my. I mean, to be fair, this is also a good opportunity for us to just ramble on a random topic instead of answering questions. Which is something we like to do occasionally.
Mm-hmm. I've summoned a certain somebody. No, Timu. No.
You see, Fleet can't summon Blue Eyes yet. He hasn't. He needs a few more monsters on the field to sacrifice before he can do that.
Yeah. So, tell you what. Let's talk about the problems with Hearts of Iron 4 meta. And by that I don't mean the problems with the meta itself. I mean the fact that it's really corrupted a certain type of Hoi player and destroyed their ability to think creatively. As was so aptly demonstrated by the catastrophic failure of a team of meta players to beat a Z-fascist Russian cope lord. Which is honestly a travesty.
I didn't watch it.
I didn't either, to be fair. As soon as I saw the way it was going, I was like, yeah, they're gonna lose. And they did lose. I mean, I guess, congratulations, Russia, you can win in a video game when all the cards are stacked in your favor. Well done. Do you want a cookie? I mean, for example, me and Moe can attest. I mean, minor nations, with the way we play our games, are a lot more powerful than people give them credit for. I mean, how many times have you guys all looked at my nation in a save and gone, Fleet's building all 3 types of tank and every type of aircraft, and he's got decent numbers of them? Because I do that. I'm incapable of having gaps. We must have all the capability.
Most of the time, I think building every single type of equipment is a little bit of a waste.
But I always just bang a factory on it so that if I need it, I can ramp it up. And I've got a stockpile there. It always helps. Yeah, it's Dr. Clark is.
I guess.
My audience is just, oh fuck, here he
Yep,
comes.
next here.
Here he comes. Here he comes.
Someone messaged him probably.
Yeah.
Although
Nobody.
that's not the first question you have to answer.
No, that is the first question I have to answer.
Yeah.
I did Timu's Patreon question, and I did Timu's normal question.
No, Stephen Myers dropped the question before Night did.
Stephen Meyer asks, does Captain challenges Billy Mitchell to hit the moving ship with $100 to any pilots who hits him? He'll keep his ship in sight of shore. Would this change the US Army's level bombing doctrine? No, because Billy Mitchell's pilots aren't going to hit jack or shit. Politely. They couldn't even find a ship at sea. And it wasn't even that far out of the shore. Even if the ship's near the shoreline, what bloody chance have they got of finding the damn thing? They don't have the sights. They don't have their bombs don't drop fast enough that they can't be avoided. They can't drop them low enough to not be avoided. Skip bombing isn't a thing. The planes aren't going fast enough. Their fuses are all contact-based, not delayed. Yeah, there will still be a moving ship. They'll run out of bombs before they actually hit the damn thing. Unless they do something monumentally stupid that skews the test, like the pilot doing something stupidly risky that just wouldn't happen in actual combat. If that makes sense.
Everything could occur in actual combat.
No, but you know what I mean. Like it would be something that would skew the test, so that basically everyone would do what they did with the real test and go, "This doesn't fucking change anything." This is the thing everyone misses about the fucking test they did against the Ospreys land. The US Army's bombing doctrine was literally not affected by the tests in any way. The army rightfully chastised Mitchell, slapped him with a bloody reprimand, and then buggered him off to do God knows what. As was entirely the correct response to the absolute mockery he made of the test that he asked for by rigging it in his favour. Oh, and, you know, nearly killing some of the people who was trying to verify the things he was talking about. You know. That whole bit. If Hood doesn't... 1981 on YouTube asked, if Hood doesn't sink but is so badly damaged and is sent to the Americans for reconstruction out of the Boston, Hunters Point, Puget Sound, Norfolk, Philadelphia Yard, which is the ones you'd likely go to, as these 5 Navy yards are the only ones in America with dry docks big enough to take a ship of the size of the Admiral class. If you want an accurate answer to that question, I can't give you one. There is no way to tell. But
which one's free?
Yeah, that's basically the closest we can get, whichever one's got space and the British are willing to pay for a berthing.
At that year, it's actually... I don't know if there is one free.
Yeah. Like I say, it would just be down to these... like, again, questions that are that kind of detailed into the minutiae of berth allocations, that's very much more a Draco Clark thing. Everyone seems to forget, I'm very much a surface-level facts, figures, gun calibers, and vibes historian. Like, I'm not even a bloody historian. I'm a guy on the internet. You want to ask questions that detailed? Please, I beg. Drac and Dr. Clark are right there. Drac and Dr. Clark are right there. They're right. In fact, literally right now, Dr. Clark is right there.
Yes, indeed. Although I'm gonna say,
I am the one you come for the haha funny opinion and fleet ranting on about fish for 2 hours straight because of a random tangent. That's why you come here.
Considering that Rodney is going to America at that stage, it's very likely the Admiralty would probably do Hood themselves. Because I think that was what they planned on doing anyway, right? I don't think they were planning to send Hood off to America for the rebuild.
No, given the scale of the work she needs, you're talking full main battery rebuild, secondary rebuild, boiler rebuild. Basically, as soon as you start, reworking in a major way the main or secondary battery, it's got to be done at home. This is
Pretty much.
This is the thing everyone misses about the rebuilds in America. None of the Allied ship rebuilds messed with engines, main battery, secondary battery, or armor belt. The refits were primarily sensor, light AA, and maybe some non-invasive work on boilers and machinery. If you're talking about actually opening the ships up, messing with their primary and secondary guns, or their armor scheme, no, you're doing that at home. I mean, for God's sake, look at Richelieu. She came out of rebuild missing one of her 15-inch guns because there wasn't a replacement. And sailed into action with her aft turret, with her super-firing turret, having only 3 guns. Because where the fuck were they supposed to get a French 15-inch gun? Wellesley, in response to the thing about spending resources on rebuilding Hood as building a new battleship, in terms of financial resources in peacetime, you'd be absolutely correct. However, in wartime, where money basically isn't an object when you're fighting a total war, but instead the bottleneck becomes industrial capacity and raw material, rebuilding a ship like Hood becomes a very attractive prospect. Is it going to cost a fortune? Yes. But what's she actually going to require in terms of new kit? She's not going to need new guns. She's not going to need as much new armor plate as a new capital ship. She's going to need replacement boilers and turbines. And a new secondary battery, yes. But you're not going to have to build a new hull. You're not going to have to... Basically, the raw material resources input required to get another fast capital unit for modern fleet work is less than to build a new capital ship. This is the thing that everyone misses, especially when it comes to... In Total War, like World War II, when you're talking about that scale of conflict... money becomes a after-the-war problem for the most part. And what matters more is your allocation of raw material resources. Manpower, steel, coal, iron ore, machinery, carbide tips for your cutting machines. And in terms of that scale of diversion of material, well, she's getting a reworking significantly to her main battery, Wellesley. Increased elevation. I mean, it fundamentally doesn't matter how badly damaged she is. You're splitting hairs at this point. It really doesn't matter. The point I'm making is more in relation to the costs involved here. You understand what I'm saying, Moe, don't you? Back me up here.
Yes. Hood, like we said, Hood before the war was practically falling to pieces.
In fact, you could argue the Vanguard class were a replacement more for her and the battle cruisers than they were bolsterings to the main line. Yes, they were battleships, but they were far more akin to battle cruiser replacements than they were anything else. Without the war, you probably see Hood retired rather than rebuilt. Because it would actually be cheaper to build a new Vanguard-style warship than to rebuild Hood to the rate you'd need. You do need to rework Hood's main battery. She needs increased elevation. She needs some reworking to her guns.
Hood is still working off of the World War I era 15-inch turrets.
30 degrees is not enough in modern combat. They had to close Bismarck to arrange inside. Prince of Wales fired first. Hood had to close.
They don't elevate to 30 degrees yet.
Yeah, and I'm fairly certain...
Hood never got that.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hood never got that upgrade.
Yeah, she
Hood's
never.
last major refit was in 29.
Yeah, she does not have the
She
increase.
never got that.
Yeah,
She never got the ones that the QEs got.
No, and she has the Mark II 15-inch 42 mount as well. Well, no. Also, I didn't say she was getting a new main battery. I said any work that deals significantly with the workings of the primary or secondary battery is work you do at home, rather than rebuilding in the States, is what I actually said. I mean, dear God, anything to win an argument. Question for Moe from Timu. This is for you, so I have no idea what this is. From Timu on Discord. For Moe, should Fleet watch the space opera series called Vandred? Do you know what this is?
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
I don't know what this is.
I doubt it's anything up your alley.
Honestly, no. I'm gonna fundamentally disagree with you there. Hood will probably be retired as early as is practicable, because despite her in peacetime, as soon as you get at least the first Vanguard in, it's honestly better to keep Renown and Repulse around. They're less worn out. If you've got Vanguard around, which is basically a similar capability to Hood in peacetime, given the cost to make Hood a viable modern combatant would be equivalent to building a fresh new Vanguard. Again,
that wouldn't be.
It would
Fourth
be.
question.
Well, no, not if Hood got her refit during the war.
Well,
then
yeah.
she would be the most modern.
Yes, but that's not what I said. What I said was, in assuming peacetime with no war, Hood would arguably be, as soon as you've got the first one or maybe two Vanguard style 30-knot fast capital ships in, she's gone.
But why are you getting Vanguards?
No, she's not. Right. Because Hood has something over Vanguard. That is why she'll be kept around a lot longer.
She's worn out. The cost of a rebuild would be extortionate.
But I know. Then, because by the time war starts, she's less worn out than the equivalent QEs. It's just her turbines that need replacing. Her hull's in pretty good condition.
I thought her whole machinery was shot. I thought all of her machinery was shot.
It was a issue with the turbines.
Okay, fair enough.
Hence why she stripped a turbine at Millsdale Kabir, because the turbines had a significantly shorter machine life than expected.
Okay, fair enough. If it is just her turbines with a specific issue and not, I thought her boilers were also shot to shit.
Her boilers. If you're replacing turbines, you might as well.
Oh no, of course. But what I mean is, but also I'm just gonna finish my point that I'm not so much talking about wartime here. I'm talking about specifically if, like, obviously, my argument was during the war it makes sense to refit Hood because at that point you're just not talking about financial cost anymore. You're in the middle of a total war. Logistics and raw material cost matters far more. And in terms of that cost, it's really efficient to refit Hood compared to building a new capital ship.
It's really efficient.
Well,
right. No, quick catch. Hood, in a normal war period, and then with the rise of the carrier, has an advantage that no other ship in the Royal Navy has. Aside from her now, after her rebuild. She is fast. Mm-hmm. She can stay fast for a very long time.
This is fine.
Hood, once you are able to take her off mainline duties and put her into the second line duty she was designed for, up until the 50s is a very useful asset.
Yes, and the problem I have is that if you've got I am well. No, I don't think a
Right.
rebuild of Hood is going to cost less than the QE's rebuild. That's just I.
They predicted
Depends
the same
on the-
ballpark.
Depends on
predicted the
how they
same
refit
ballpark.
them. Yeah. Also, again, I'm going to go back to the point I've been trying to make for a while. Why are we getting vanguards if there's no war?
Because the Royal Navy's plan was always for
Nope.
vanguards.
Yeah.
It was
No.
always no. It was always for vanguard
No,
style
it
battleship.
wasn't.
Yes, it was. Drax been over this. Like the plan.
If there's no war, you're getting lions.
Well, yes, you are also. Yeah, you get lions as well. But the Vanguard class was a long-term build plan to rapidly regenerate Royal Navy fast capital assets and replace the battle and primarily to replace the older battle cruisers.
Yes, but as Drax's own video points out, the Vanguards, as we know them, are a byproduct of the Munich conference and this rush to rearm. If there's no war and there's no Munich conference, rearmament is a lot slower. You don't get Vanguards because you don't see the perceived
fair.
need for them.
If you don't, yeah.
Okay, right. I'm going to also shut this down by the fact of no, they weren't a long time thing. They were explicitly they became a thing in 1939.
That's what Foxo just said.
But you said that they're a long-term thing to regenerate 3D. No, they're not.
No, that's what I was talking about in the.
Yeah.
I was talking about in the historical timeline.
No,
They were
in the
supposed to-
historical
Yeah,
timeline, no, they weren't.
No, but they.
Right. Just to clear it up, right? The Vanguard are a byproduct of the Munich conference in 1938. The design is finalized in 1939. The reason why the
What?
Vanguards look how they do is because they were specifically designed for an expedited building program between 1939 and 1947.
And to
They were designed so you could get 8 of the fucking things
yeah, and that's what
while using pre-existing guns and long lead items, like guns and turrets, and bits originally earmarked for the admirals.
yeah, that's what I mean when I say
no,
that's what
though.
That's what I mean when I say long-term building item.
Because we know the engines were actually taken as long leads from the Lions, not anything else.
Well, yes,
Because they thought they could get a Vanguard, singular Vanguard, into service before anything else.
Yes, but that happened after the start of war in 39. I'm talking, they're looking at
But-
refurbishing their engine capacity because they've earmarked Lion's engines for Lion. The Vanguard initially look at any other engines the Royal Navy has that can propel a fast capital ship.
Like, bear in mind, Vanguard.
No, they don't, though.
You're talking about Vanguard as she historically was, and her historical build-out, which I understand happened for the reasons it did because of the way history developed and the way the war went and the way the Royal Navy's procurement happened. What we're talking about is the Vanguard class as originally envisaged with the original final design as a series of one-off similar ships built, one running in parallel to each of the Royal Navy's new classes of battleship over a roughly 8-year period from about 39 through 47, you said, Foxo?
Then no, you don't get that.
Why? Well, yeah, but
Because assuming there's peacetime, there's no longer a need to rapidly rebuild capital ships.
well, yeah.
You continue the 1939, 1941, 1942 plans, which there is no mentions of vanguards.
Yes,
initially.
Exactly.
I already agreed to that.
So, also, as he's pointed out, you already slightly backpedaled yourself here, but
No, I didn't. I agreed with Foxo when
but
she originally
continuing
said that.
on with what I was saying, the Vanguard, unless you're getting an entirely different timeline, and I mean the Royal Navy is thinking entirely different, you don't see a Vanguard's return to this because why would they? If you're building more and more and more of these up to that point, you're not using the 15-inch 42. Vickers themselves have the 15-inch 50 that's available and ready for
But
use.
that's not the point of the Vanguards. The Vanguards is the whole point of the
But
Vanguards is
right, you can build a Vanguard as singular Vanguard with the spare guns and barrels and turrets, right?
Yes, you can then do
You
that
cannot
again.
continue to build out a class of them.
Yes, you can.
The
There are...
turrets don't exist.
Yes, they do. What do you think was going to
No.
happen to the Revengers turrets when they were retired?
Then
was-
you don't use a 15-inch 42, though. You put 15-inch 50s in.
No, you
Yes,
do use
which is
42.
why. Right. So we don't have a lead up to war, right? So we don't have a Munich conference.
So we don't have the
Then
Vanguards
Vanguard is
anyway.
irrelevant because Vanguard
Yes.
is a product of the Munich conference.
Yeah, which is what I've already agreed with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
Foxo's right.
So, and in a world without Vanguard, you're looking at the KGBs, then the Lions. A Lion at this point, we're going off the 39 Lions, we're looking at a 28-knot ship. Right? Which means Hood, Renown, and Repulse will continue to exist until they are replaced. Because the Lions, unless you go to 43, don't have the high-speed endurance the Admirals and Renown do. And the high-speed endurance is what the Royal Navy wants those three for.
I'm actually going to push back on that. Hood doesn't need to be kept around if you're building this. She'll be gone in like 42 once the KGBs and the Lions are in. She's out.
No, she won't be.
If the Lions are going to be 30
He
knot
leads
ships,
the battle cruiser squadron.
Yeah.
No, the lines are not going to be 30 knots. That's
They're
what she's saying.
28.
we
They're 28.
we had this discussion a few months ago. I said the Lions were 30 knot, were 28 knots. You all said no, they're 30. I went and looked, and they're 30.
Hence why I specified the year. Because the Lions pre-war are 28 knots, right? They then get upped in 1941 to 30 knots. Then they go down again to 28. Then they go back up to 32 and 34. Which is where you get the line
correct.
designs that
No,
are
I was,
higher
no,
equivalent.
I'm going to say no correction. Sorry, I was misremembering things. But no, 1938 design is 30 knots. So,
I thought it was
well,
28.
listen,
Does it go down to
the
28?
one that they decided on for 38. There is 28 knot designs in 38, but they've.
Okay.
This is why Vanguard's fun, because there's like 20 different versions.
Well, the Lions fun, but yeah.
No, the Lions, like you've got like 50 versions.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, I meant Lions, but yeah.
But the fact is,
Vanguard, yeah.
Hood has a use. And Hood's use is being fast enough to curb stomp any cruiser on the planet. Curb stomp any raider on the planet. Curb stomp a Congo. If just with Renown and Repulse, curb stomp the Congos. Total. Arguably, it needs to be go up and fuck up one of the older standards. The only thing Hood isn't a matchup for, and it's significantly faster than, is the modern cutting edge battleships. So your Biscuits and your Littorios. But that's what you got the Lions for. And for the policing and sea control role, until you get the late war carrier, all cruisers can do it.
Yeah, Wellesley, she wasn't saying... Well, no, Hood isn't a match for Bismarck in a straight-up gunfight. Yes, Bismarck slapped her with a lucky BB shell at Denmark Strait, but I'm sorry, in a straight-up shooting match, Bismarck will cream Hood's clock 8 times out of 10. Yes, Hood can punch back, but Bismarck is just a better ship in a straight-up slugging match, and will beat Hood 8 times out of 10.
Got the issue of her belt is at range and at angle, which her fire control can do. Her belt is resistant and her deck is resistant to Biscuit's guns. Biscuit's resistance to hers. The issue is Hood has a very shallow armor belt. It's what Believe did her in when she was going flank and started to turn and rolled out of the turn and exposed her underside hull beneath the armor belt.
And also, there's an odd factor that if you're talking a straight-up slugging match, with the Royal Navy's desire to close, this is one of the weird things where, in a straight-up one-on-one slugging match, Bismarck has another advantage. She has a well-laid-out, turreted 6-inch secondary battery, which, if you're talking about a closing engagement, the kind of thing the Royal Navy likes to fight, if that comes into play, and starts plastering Hood's upperworks with HE, Vanguard. Bismarck stands a real chance of degrading Hood's ability to fight by nibbling away at her things that are important but not under armor. Via control directors, things like that.
Yeah. Hood's got the advantage, though, of in a world where the lines exist, Hood's being reserved to the battlecruiser squadron.
Yeah, she doesn't have to
Leading
deal with that
battlecruiser,
shit.
Which means she's got Renown and Repulse backing her up.
Yeah.
And Hood versus Bismarck is Biscuit's fight. Bismarck versus Hood, Renown and Repulse.
Run away! Run away! Run away! Run away!
Biscuit can't run away from that fight.
I
though.
know.
They're 2 to 3 knots faster.
Well, yes, Knight. I was talking about, yes, with Hood of the Prince of Wales, without the lucky shot, Bismarck will lose against Hood of the Prince. Yes, I know. Hence why I didn't say against Hood and Prince of Wales.
Right.
I said Bismarck on Hood, one-on-one slugging match.
Right. I've got to point this out because it annoys you to end. Hood is not a battleship. She is not built like a battleship knight. She can take a couple of hits from battleship caliber shells, but her frames aren't built for it. Her armor is not backed for it. Her armor's going to deteriorate to the point it can't protect her a lot quicker than Bismarck's is. And in a protracted engagement where you both have immunity zones, armor degradation means it's Biscuit's win.
And you've also got the added thing of the second of other factors coming in that aren't just primary battery and armor. This is the thing that everyone forgets about battleship engagements. They frequently degraded, even in the Dreadnought era, to a point where secondary batteries are coming into play. And the Bismarck, despite the weight detriment that they have, one of the things the Axis capital ships do have in a surface gunfight, and that's all of them, the Bismarcks, the Littorios, and the Yamatos, is a well laid out, well handleable 6-inch turreted secondary battery. And that absolutely will come into play.
Yeah. And Hood's historical 4-inch aren't a match for that. But considering that the most accepted rebuild was 5.25s in the twin turrets, that's a much easier fight.
It's in fact the fight becomes even.
No, the fight doesn't become even.
No, as in the secondary the secondary battery fight becomes even.
No, because Bismarck's built so her upper works can take 5.25s. Hood's not.
Yeah. Comparing Yamato to... No, I wasn't comparing... I didn't say...
He wasn't.
All I said was every single modern Axis capital ship, the Littorios, the Bismarcks, and the Yamatos, they all have a fairly well laid out turreted 6-inch secondary battery. And they all do.
Yeah. The one exception being arguably Littorio.
Yeah, the Littorio's 6 inches aren't that badly laid out.
Yeah, but they have some questionable angles.
That is true. I'm not going to deny. But they're not too bad. They can bring a 6-gun broadside to bear, and it's not too bad.
Yeah, but broadside, but she doesn't have the ability to bring a lot of them even 30 degrees from broadside.
I mean, yes, Knight, I'm aware the 4-inch guns were a stopgap, but that doesn't change the fact that they were still there. And we have to discuss what was there. I mean, it's kind of like saying, yes, well, the Yamatos were, just the fleet at later. I always find this argument very annoying. It's like, yes, they were, but they were just a stopgap, like if she'd have had that, but she didn't, did she? She didn't have that, or they didn't have that. Like this argument does always annoy me. It's like, yes, I know X thing on X thing was not supposed to be there, and they were supposed to have X thing, but they didn't have X thing, did they? That's not really an argument.
Well, just before we go, for Hood's armor, Hood would have had her armor belt dropped, so it's a deeper belt, which they plan to do with displacement for replacing her turbines with boilers with modern engines, which would have cut about 10% of her engine displacement off. and using the denser machinery to actually bulk up her compartmentalization at the water line, so she could hang heavier armor belt and a heavier armor belt. As for strengthening her frame, a little bit through increasing compartmentalization, but the issue with Hood's frame is... Okay, basically, a battleship, you can change its center of mass, because they tend to be slower ships. And you can do stuff like bulge them, or change the shape of their bows, or lengthen them, or shorten them, or change their underwaters to accommodate for any shift in center of mass, right? A battle cruiser, especially a high-speed one like Hood, you can't. Beyond a point. Because a ship as long as Hood was designed to flex in a certain way, and she already has issue with flexing being partly too brittle because of her increased subdivision armor belt already. It's just not a sort of game you want to play.
Yeah.
With some battle cruisers.
Right. We'll move on to the next question because it is a very quick one.
Quickly.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I thought we were done.
I
Sorry.
And the thing is, I know she comes up a lot, it's an issue with the admirals. And it's an issue the Lions have. But Tiger doesn't. It's why when you look at the proposed internal framing for K2 and K3, and the G3s and the N3s, they take their design and framing cues off Tiger, not Hood. Because Hood's built like a cruiser.
Yeah.
And quickly. And fixing her submarine quarterdeck? Yes, that's why they were going to rebalance her. Because of her impromptu modifications, her center of mass had shifted 15 meters aft, which means her bow drooped too low, and it pushed her bow out her aft drooped too low, and it pushed her bow out the water.
Yes. Right. Anyway, so Knight is at the one. If in a scenario where the Anzacs got Lion instead of Indefatigable, would the Indefatigable fast being wiped out at Jutland not reflect badly on the RN? Wow, the weakly built successors that are worse than the things that came before them got wiped out by actual battle cruisers built to fight other battle cruisers. Shock horror, who could guess? I mean, I don't know what... Like,
it would just make Kaiser Boost more irritating on the internet.
Yeah, but that'd be it. Knights at the one. If the RAF had 6X British Airways McDonnell Douglas DC-1050s and 3X Pan Am Lockheed L1101 500 TriStars for conversion to tankers in the 1980s, what issues do you see the RAF having? You can't just... I don't know, because I'm not an expert on tankery thingies in the air. They have booms and funny drogue thingy-bobbies that go whoosh, and the fuel goes whoosh down the pipes. That's it. Tanker aircraft, they exist. I guess. I don't know.
The Mass Effect ship.
I don't know. That is a throw that one at Rex's hangar, or Lord Hardthrasher if you can find him. That's well outside my wheelhouse. Stephen Mayer 6019. Follow. What? Someone else. What the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
I would not be given this power.
Nope. I'm not even going to attempt that. 96831 asked, If Yamato had had the 36 5-inch 40s instead of 6 6-inch 6.1 and 12 5-inch, along with 152 25mm and 14 30.2mm MGs, would the heavier 5-inch battery along with the 25mm AA make it more cost for US to kill her? Yes. It gives ship significant increase in AA firepower. Asks if it will make ship significantly more costly to attack from air. Like, Knight, I love you, but I'm sorry. This is a case of ask obvious question, get
On
obvious answer.
ramblings, we only answer the most intellectually stimulating questions.
I am really sorry, Knight, but that is just the case of ask obvious question, get obvious answer. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what you were expecting there. Is this like it gives Yamato significantly increased AA battery? Will it make it more difficult for aircraft to kill her fleet? Like, just like the two-eyed fucking Mike Wazowski staring into the camera
I'm
face.
now sitting here questioning: is that even significantly heavier?
Yeah, it's increasing. It's 3.
I don't think it is.
It's 3 times the barrels for 5-inch, and I think it's more than double the 25mm.
By 10 go? I don't think so.
I believe so.
Don't think so. I think
Admiral
by 10 go.
Wellesley asks, if I make the sky brighter, would it make the oceans bluer?
No,
I
it makes
am-
it darker.
I am not a physicist. I studied physics.
It makes the oceans darker because she would increase light refraction.
Knight 6831, if something after World War II makes decolonization never happen, how do you see the world adapting up to the end of the 50s? A lot more people are dying, bloodily, violently, horrifically, as the empires struggle to hold on to nations that do not want to be held. The only way to hold on to colonies post-World War II is with lots and lots of dead bodies. As the French found out and the Portuguese found out. The only way you hold them as administratable parts of your overseas empire and don't hold on, and if you try to hold on to them hard, and they don't want you, be prepared for the body count to rise, both yours and theirs. And they'll win in the end. Every single nation that tried to hold their colonies by force found this out the hard way.
Which is why you need to transition them.
Yeah, how do I see the world adapting? The Russians are having a field day. The AK-47s are flowing into Africa and they just don't stop.
They never stopped anyway.
You know what I mean, though.
Oh, the interesting thing is that also implies the Soviet colonial empire doesn't collapse.
What do you mean?
They don't get collapsed in the Soviet Union,
Oh, that's just, yeah, fuck.
which means
Well,
they
no,
get
well,
the collapse
no.
of communism.
Well, no. He's talking about up to the end of the 50s. So, again, basically you've
That's not
got...
the 50s.
End
What,
of the
they
50s.
didn't really collapse in the 40s.
Yeah, bear in mind, the British Empire in Africa doesn't really start going until the mid to late 60s.
Because it's Nigeria in 54, isn't it?
Yeah.
That starts it.
Yeah, Nigeria in 54 starts the collapse of the British Empire in Africa. And you don't see and you don't see the famous strip of Empire Red going in a large part until the mid 60s. You know, that bit of Empire Red down the eastern side of the continent. That doesn't go until the...
Yeah, I just thought. If the colonial empires aren't being kicked out of the colonies so quickly, you don't get a Rhodesia.
Yeah, because the white settlers get forced to fucking admit they're going to lose their power. At the point of a gun. By the British. Yay! Yay!
For context, from those that don't know, Rhodesia was largely unrecognized because the white settlers in Rhodesia declared themselves independent from the British colonial government
Basically
of
because
Rhodesia. Because the British government were trying to set up a unitary Westminster-style democracy that would see universal racial suffrage. of course, only men could vote, but all men would be able to vote.
It wasn't going to be like it wasn't going to be like
the
the
white settlers didn't like that.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be like the glorious apartheid universal area of South Africa, and the Rhodesians couldn't handle that, so they rebelled to become like South Africa, and the glorious apartheid state that it was. Obviously, everything's perfect in South Africa. Nothing ever goes wrong in apartheid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I can do an Afrikaans accent if I want to. You're gonna get fit. You're gonna be fit up. You're gonna be the fittest man you ever known.
What have you turned into, Fleet?
I'm Afrikaans fleet. I come from fucking Johannesburg. I'm Afrikaans
That
fleet.
is so bad.
That's a bad man. Do we not want to do a racist accent on rambling? Because I can do a much more racist accent than you.
Yeah, but no, the Afrikaans, the Afrikaans.
I'm sorry, Fleet, but do you want the 30,000 downvotes of India?
No, the Afrikaans
I
accent.
can get you that 30,000.
The Afrikaans accent is not racist. The Afrikaans accent is just what people who speak English but who also speak Afrikaans sound like. It's just how they are.
Yeah, but you don't sound like
because
it.
you're not doing an Afrikaans accent. You're doing an Australian accent.
No, I'm not. Australian will be like this, you know, a bit of the old this and that, you know, going down the Barbie across the old Sydney Opera House Bridge.
Eastern Australian accent. You were doing the Western Australian.
No.
Exactly like a Rhodesian.
No. Anyway, right. I've met a nice South African, I've met a nice South African. His name was Mr. Durant. He was our rugby teacher, Mr. Durant. Properly thick accent that man had.
And our Lord Strikecraft.
Anyway, next. Bot, are you okay?
Are you?
No, I know Wellesley. I'm aware of the song. Is the bot okay? Is the bot okay? Bot?
Hey, when was the last time you took the bot out for its birthday?
I don't know why it's not working. Why isn't it working? It was working a minute ago. Why is it not working now? Has the bot just failed? Alright, where's
Did
it
it?
now? Yeah, the bot has just... Yeah. There are two questions the bot is just not releasing. For some reason. Okay, turn it off and turn it on again. Okay, so I can turn it off and turn it on again. Yeah, it's not releasing the questions. Yeah, it's just not. It's just no longer doing it. Okay. I guess I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. Switching over to manual. Okay. So this is the next one. From Night 6831 on...
I'd have committed a war crime? Question mark?
From Night 6831 on YouTube. As the Neptune and Minotaur classes would have been converted to helicopter cruisers if either were built, can we say they'd have fared a little better than the Tigers? Well, first of all, we have no guarantee they'd be converted to helicopter cruisers. They'd be candidates for conversion to RN missile cruisers. They've got a lot more tonnage to work with, tonnage that you need for that sort of conversion. They're also significantly more capable than the Tigers. Bear in mind, the reason the Tigers are converted is because they're the only hulls that are big enough, but it's also considered that you're not losing that much capability by doing the conversion, and what you're gaining outweighs significantly what you're losing. they were arguably much more used to the RN as the helicopter cruisers they were than the 6-inch cruisers they were before. Whereas the Minotaurs and the Neptunes, what you're losing in terms of a proper modern gun cruiser is probably not outweighed by the half and half you're getting by rebuilding them into helicopter cruisers. Because there's a reason, bear in mind, there's a reason why the Des Moines class were never significantly rebuilt and were kept around the way they were. There's a reason why the rebuilds to missile cruisers and helicopter thingies came for the Baltimores, came for the Clevelands, came for everything but the Des Moines. There's a reason why the Des Moines were kept the way they were. Because the USN realized that these are the absolute fucking hot shittest gun cruisers or gun combatants in the world that are not battleships. And prior to about 1972, which is when the Des Moines finally pay off into the mothball fleet completely, without much hope of a reprieve, they are considered valuable in that role. Because if the missiles can't fly, there is basically nothing that can deal with a Des Moines if it wants to kill you.
Aside from a battleship.
And the other side don't have any of those.
They are building the Stalingrads. The Stalingrad's good.
Not in the 50s, 60s, and 70s after they're cancelled.
They cancelled the death of Stalin in 54, aren't they?
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying.
So
Basically,
for the fortune in the 50s, they would count.
not really, because they're not in service, and then they're cancelled.
But
It
I would
doesn't.
like to throw a wrench in the works here. Argument. It's a good argument.
It's a
But
correct
I
argument.
have
It's what U.S. Navy
Need to
papers.
admit
It's
that
what.
it's as much about the Des Moines being capable as it is of the Des Moines having, as in the Baltimores and the Salt Lake Cities and all of those, having proven that they take very well to aircraft and conversion.
No, I wasn't making an argument. I was quoting off U.S. Navy papers and documents at the time. This isn't me saying I think this is no. This is why. This is why the Des Moines were kept the way they were.
Yeah, but from what I read on specifically the missile cruiser conversions of the Baltimores and the Salt Lake Cities, with the conversion of Albany, right?
Yeah.
A significant portion of it was because those ships had proven to be very good when converted.
Oh yeah, but also like it's both things being true at the same time. You had other ships you could convert that were suitable for it, and you don't want to crimp a very valuable asset. So both things are true at the same time. Everyone wins.
Yeah.
But
And if Knight ever shits on the Baltimores, I will find where he lives. Because the Baltimores are the goat of cruisers.
The Des Moines are sat there looking at you funny.
Yeah, but the US Navy had the Baltimores when they needed them.
That doesn't change
They
the fact.
didn't have the Des Moines when they didn't need them.
I would argue the Des Moines are very useful.
And arguably, anything a Des Moines can deal with, a Baltimore can deal with.
No, a Des Moines could probably go toe to toe with a Stalingrad with about a 40-60 odds.
Yeah,
of
but
success.
you just said the Stalingrads don't count because they weren't built.
No, but that's not the same. That's not the
Yeah,
same
right.
thing. That's not how that works.
Because as Sverdlov, I would put the money on the Baltimore any day of the week.
Well, obviously, the Sverdlov versus the Baltimore is the Baltimore's fight to lose.
Yeah. So it's like, what are the ships actually built? What does the Des Moines deal with that the Baltimore doesn't?
In theory, nothing. If we're talking about a gunfight.
Exactly. Hence why the Baltimores are the goat.
But the Des Moines will do it
Because
quicker.
they saw war service and Cold War service.
Yes, and then they put a giant rectangle on it.
Yeah.
Slayer
And they
asks,
served with distinction a giant rectangle.
Slayer asks, what if Britain successfully achieved the Imperial Federation at the end of the 20s? How would this change the lead up to World War II? It's too late. The 20s is too late.
This feels like
No,
a
it's
question that has
not.
been answered multiple times.
Imperial Federation has to happen in the 1890s or it fails. You can try it, but it'll fail. Anytime past basically 1897, it'll fail.
Yeah, because you're not looking at the centralized federalized federation at this point.
No.
You'd be looking at the
Proto-Commonwealth,
Almost
basically.
no, you'd be looking at more a federalized version of the EU,
Yeah.
where everyone's sovereign, but an EU like Commonwealth exists over them.
Why? Basically because by that point, Slayer, the white settler colonies have fully established their own identities. By the 20s. Canadians view themselves as fully as Canadians rather than British North American. Australians and New Zealanders view themselves as Australians and New Zealanders, not
Welcome
British,
to World War One.
not British New South Walesers or British South Pacificers.
But
Which
the
they-
British Columbians still see themselves as British.
Yeah. No,
But British
Wellesley.
Columbia is the exception that makes the rule.
No, Wellesley. By the 1920s, the Canadians viewed themselves as... They viewed themselves as British, yes, but they also had a distinct Canadian identity.
Thank
It's
you,
a
Passion Dev.
byproduct of the First World War.
Yeah, the First World War crystallized. No. Yeah. This is what we're saying. In the 1890s, there's more we are British in an overseas land rather than we are our own distinct thing within this overarching British cultural zeitgeist. This is why if you want a proper unitary federal state, it has to be the 1890s.
Well, no. You can do it in the 20s, you're just not getting it quickly. You have to sovereign federalize it in the EU style, which was the idea for the United Commonwealth. And then build an identity on top of that, so you're... Whatever they decide to say Anglo, the Anglo first, Canadian second.
Yeah.
Which is how you create pan-nationalist identities.
Oh no, you could have a unitary imperial federal state. You if you do it in the 1890s, you absolutely could. That is the period where if you take the zeitgeist of the Victorian Diamond Jubilee and use that as your catalyst, you could in fact weld the empire together, even perhaps including India, into a full unitary state.
Not India. No.
That'll be a rough one.
India's never being integrated unless you're
I
doing the federalization path.
didn't say integrated. I said it'd be part of the state, but I didn't say it would be an integrated bit. You'd probably be rumblings throughout there. But
No, because...
the thing is, Wellesley, even though self-rule has happened, it's very, very hard to overstate the unifying event in British history, as in terms of the unity it brought to the nation and nations of the British Empire as a whole, that Victoria's Diamond Jubilee was. It's something that was never seen before and was never seen again.
For example, it was celebrated in Ireland. And how often do you hear of the Irish celebrating an English monarch?
No, not really, Wellesley. Dominionship actually, I think, needs to come before it happens. Dominionship actually lays the groundwork for federalization. You can't have the Federation as an idea without the Dominions.
Okay, it depends. Are we talking about federalization as integration into the United Kingdom, or federation as a above the United Kingdom hegemonic style thing?
I will point out when I say
EU style.
I will point out when I say an integrated state, I'm not talking about the integration of
Colony expensive.
Yeah.
Colony hard to tax.
Fair.
Which is why India will never be a part of it.
Okay, so it's Slayer's like, I see, sorry. It's Slayer saying if it successfully achieved the Imperial Federation. So I presume that's with it all locked in, finalized, sorted, the Federation running, purring away. If the
Well,
Imperial Federation exists at the
in
end of the
30 years,
20s, so if World War One has welded the Federation together, like so say if most of the groundwork was laid before World War One, and then World War One basically brought the Federation together as we fought as one Federation. We weren't Indian or Canadian or New Zealander or Anzac or South African or Nigerian or British. We were all there. We were all in the trenches. We were all on the Royal Navy's warships. If you've then got this juggernaut coming out of the World War triumphant, first of all, there is no Washington Naval Treaty. The Imperial Federation has far too many commitments to be bound by any sort of fleet limitation. Because unlike the Royal Navy that existed beforehand, the Imperial Federation, by its very nature, has to maintain a fleet big enough to dominate the Pacific, a fleet big enough to dominate the Indian Ocean, a fleet big enough to dominate the South Atlantic, the North Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Pacific operating out of Western Canada. You're talking about a nation whose navies need to be able to fight any threat in place at the moment a war starts. And then also protect the sea lanes between its various parts of itself. That is a nation that looks at any idea of a naval limitation treaty and goes, no. This is also a nation that can just go...
Post-war's a moot point. Because you've got America's worst nightmare. A hegemonic Anglo state that speaks the same language as them. America has to realpolitik in that because it can't. Because unlike every other superpower in the world at this point, it shares a continent with the United Commonwealth. It can't stick its head in the sand. Which means you've got an entirely different American policy in the First World War, which is a moot point post-war.
Yeah. Wellesley, two-power standard? No. Wait, you're thinking way too small here. The Royal Navy just abandons... The Imperial Navy just abandons power standards entirely. Because they're so far beyond it, it's not even funny. You're talking about a nation that would have to... No, standards just aren't needed. You're talking about a navy that needs a battle fleet in the Far East, a fleet in the Indian Ocean that's sizable enough to contest anything that might appear there. You're talking at least a battle squadron. No, Wellesley, you don't... You're missing the point.
He's making joke. Keep
I know,
going.
I know. You're talking about a nation that... Oh, he's joking me. Basically... Provided this nation can solidify itself, and provided that the war has created an imperial identity, you're talking about a nation that is the first multicultural federal state in the world, with representation for multiple races and ethnicities. You're talking about a state where the MPs are Nigerian, Ugandan, Indian, New Zealander, Australian, Maltese, Manx,
Malaysians.
Scotch, Malaysian, Canadian. Heck, if they've properly federalized completely, you might even have Canadian First Nation members of Parliament as well. As in Native Americans. Or Native Canadians.
It's going to be fun. There's going to be Chinese.
Well, the thing is, Wellesley, that was the whole point of the Federation. This is the thing that everyone missed, and it's part of the reason the whole concept failed. It was supposed to be the unification of everyone within the British sphere, with the British sphere for everyone. That was the point. And that meant everybody. It's part of the reason why the concept failed.
Well, the concept lost to the federalization of the Commonwealth idea, because the Commonwealth idea would have been a lot cheaper to run.
Yes.
And you federalize it slowly, so you'd have to worry about separatist movements, because the transition away from empire was supposed to be a generational thing.
You don't have an Indian-run Imperial Federation. You have a federation where India has the weight you would expect, given its position within the federation. Given that the federation is not supposed to be... Yes, there were fears of it being what it was, but the whole point of the federal system is if India has the population within the federation to have the MPs that it has, then it should have the weight to respect and balance that population within federal politics. And let's not forget, yes, India is a large part of federal policy, but the rest of the federation still outweighs it in terms of voting rights and political power. India cannot dominate the Imperial Federation, even if they have equal representation, simply down to the rest of the federation. If we're talking,
It very much depends on how far you break it down on cultural ends. Because even if you do it on religious lines, so you've got a representative for the Jains, the Buddhists, the Theravada Buddhists, the Hindus, and the Muslims. That's 5 different seats you need in general, which is already 3 more than Australia.
And that's not counting geographical seats either.
Yeah. Actually, no, that is 6 because I forgot about the Sikhs. Sorry, Sikhs.
Yeah. But then, of course, if you break it... But then, of course, there are also ways to counterbalance that with the African states and MPs. You can break them down by religion as well, and then that acts as a good counterbalance for the Indian seats. And then...
No, because the plans to form the Federation, right? And federalize the British Empire, conveniently leave out India and assume India will be its own thing under a Commonwealth.
Which is fine as well. That's another way to deal with it.
Let's not forget that once the British Raj forms, it is a semi-independent state.
Yes, it is.
More so than the Dominions.
Yep. A lot of it is Indians running India. Yes, the top level is British, but most of it is Indians running Indians policing Indians. This is the thing that a lot of people miss about the Raj. Is it a cruel state? Yes. Is there Yes. Yes. Is there lots of the... Yes. However, that doesn't change the fact that it is what it is.
It's India running India. It's why when you look at the Indian administration of the 1920s, it's full of Sikhs.
Yeah. It is in fact full of Sikhs. Sorry.
But yeah, India was just a non-topic for discussing the Federation.
We just
with
don't.
people believing India would have gone its own way by that point.
We don't go there. Why? Because we don't go there.
It's really hard to integrate the Indian system into any other system in the Western world.
Yes.
Or in the Eastern world, for that matter, as well. India is a very, very special, close system.
We really did a number on those chaps, unfortunately. Well, the East India Company did. I should ask, was the First World War just a war? Why is that a controversial question?
Was a just war.
Oh, no, it was a colonial imperial kerfuffle. No, it was a colonial imperial kerfuffle. No.
Depends on who you ask and who's
war,
fighting.
just a war.
Yeah. Depends on who you're talking to.
For me, no, it was a colonial. It was the culmination of colonial imperial kerfuffles, and it was the colonial imperial kerfuffle to end the colonial imperial kerfuffle system forever.
Yeah, because if you're Serbia, who just wants to be left alone and not be invaded, and the Austrians are leveraging this into an invasion of you,
you know, maybe the Serbians...
it's a just war.
You know, maybe the Serbians shouldn't have shot their bloody leader. I have no sympathy for the Serbs in the First World War. They started it.
Remember, the Serbian government didn't.
No, they did. They gave the Black Hand carte blanche. This is commonly missed. Oh, from an on-top perspective, no. No, not at all.
Yeah, from members of the Entente, yeah.
But generally, no.
I mean, Greece was just trying to survive, man. Greece has realized that Bulgaria had aligned with the Central Powers and wanted their land. Same with the Romanians.
Technically, World War One escalated to that scale because of German war plans.
I mean, well, yeah. Obviously for the Belgians, it was for Belgium it was a just war. I mean, no one's arguing.
Just war because they were coming to the aid of an ally who had been attacked.
Yes, we
If that's the
were.
case, then the Russians are. It's also a just war for the Russians because that's technically there's the same argument they were making.
The problem that I have is, well, yes, in blank terms, you are all correct. In reality, no, not really. If you add back in all the nuance surrounding the reasons why these guarantees and alliance structures were in place, unfortunately, you do come back to the whole imperial colonial kerfuffle nonsense, rather than any reason of morality or justice or the right of small nations to exist.
Oh no, you don't come back to colonial culturing. You eventually boil it down to German genocidal ambition.
Well, that as well, but
people forget just because they weren't Nazis doesn't mean the Tsar. No, not the Tsarist. The monarchists in Germany weren't. Kaiserreich wasn't still genociding against minorities. Ask the Poles.
I still don't think it was a just war, if I'm going to be brutally honest.
Yeah, I think parts of it are just.
The Belgium part's definitely just. They're just sitting there about to grab popcorn, and then suddenly someone barged in the door to proclaim that they're trying to get to your neighbors.
I mean, the Belgians were not grabbing popcorn. The Belgians weren't grabbing popcorn.
They were shooting bricks. Because it was quite literally, here we go again.
Yeah, they were pointing bayonets at the Germans going, for fuck's sake, come on, leave us alone this time. We've built a bunch of fucking forts. We know you can't deal with the fucking fort. Are you doing it anyway? Fine. Here are the forts. Wait, what do you mean they've got a giant big fuck off gun called Bertha? Yeah. But politely, I still maintain the war overall was a massive colonial clusterfuck and was caused by all the colonial clusterfucks. I don't think any of the sides really had an overall just cause. If I'm going to be brutally honest. Yes, the British had that. Yes, the British had that Belgium guarantee, and yes, we did go in to defend them. But we could have stayed out of the war if we'd wanted to. We went in for entirely imperial reasons. That I'm going to push back on.
Well, we went in because of the Treaty of London.
Which was
politely,
very vague.
An empire or nation that doesn't uphold its treaties isn't worth making treaties with.
The Germans... No nation has anything coming to it by virtue of being a nation. Even
no, the Germans did. Oh, the Germans had it coming. You're an expansionist, borderline genocidal power that's determined on becoming a hegemon. Having a major war fought against you is quite literally what you have coming.
Okay, in that sense, yes. Just in that sense, yes. Should we as the Commonwealth of Empire have joined the war? Not in the sense that we did. We should absolutely have honoured our treaty with Belgium. But once the BEF had halted the Germans, we absolutely should not have adopted the raising of a mass army of conscripts. We abandoned our historical strengths and bled a generation and an empire to death in the trenches of Flanders.
Yeah.
We should have stuck to our historical strengths, committed we should have raised armies, yes, absolutely, but we should have committed those armies to places outside of the main continental theatre, as we did during the Napoleonic Wars, very successfully. Our main front should have been Gallipoli, Egypt. Heck, maybe sending a small force of trained troops to assist the Russians. To be a core that the Russians could build offensives around. To make up for some of the Russians' deficiencies. No. I don't agree with Fisher's Baltic plan. I agree with... I forget the chap who posited this theory. Well, it wasn't Fisher. Fisher's Baltic plan was a
the
different...
fighting on the peripheries doctrine.
Yes. I forget the chap who coined it.
Yeah, the fighting on the peripheries is one massive issue, though, Fleet. Your enemy has to have peripheries to fight on.
Well, the Central Powers did.
The Ottomans
Because-
are the only peripheries at the moment.
Yeah,
And
well,
the
the
Balkans.
Ottomans are the only peripheries that will actually hurt if they're lost.
I mean,
Because
we
German
could
Papua
try
New
and-
Guinea was non-profitable.
Yeah, I know, I'm not talking... Yeah.
German Africa.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about European peripheries. Oh, yeah, I'm aware the colonial bits don't really bloody matter in the grand scheme of
Greece?
things.
You could probably try and support Greece.
Greece and Serbia are the big ones. Keeping the Southern Balkan front open is a big one.
That would be an interesting one, dropping a BEF in
Which to be fair, happened
Serbia
historically.
against Austrians.
It happened historically, so we can still do that as historical. I think the big one is going to try and get some form of expeditionary force to Russia. That's the big one. And I'm not talking about a full-scale force like we saw in France.
That's going to be a hard one.
If we can...
Considering the frontage they're fighting on, you're
Uh,
going to need to send a decent-sized force in order to cover
no,
in
that's
order
not...
to actually help.
That's not the point. The point is the Russians have the men to cover the front. What we're looking to do is set up maybe a corps-sized force, maybe 2 corps, that can act as something the Russians really don't have. A mobile, well-trained force to be the spear tip of an offensive and carry it through the opening stages of any offensive action, which were the crucial bits the Russians couldn't do until the Brusilov offensive.
What the Russian really needs is just more guns.
Not really. They needed the reforms that were brought in prior to the Brusilov offensive, which the British could help expedite.
And more guns.
Really?
Don't forget your dots, people, if you have questions. Oh, bloody
Anyway,
hell!
Move on from this.
What?
Shit, it's 9 o'clock. Wow. How long were we on this question for? Wow.
Yeah, like I said, you
It's not just this question. There was quite a few questions we constantly rambled and deviated on.
Wow.
We spent a long time on Hood.
We did. Wow.
And then that whole Vanguard argument.
This doing numbers.
Bro says getting 3 likes.
It's fine. Oh, I have the funny number of subscribers, 369. Nice. The funny number. The funny number. Okay, one more question. Let's see. What have we got?
I can now play Project Stardust for you if you want to do it on stream again.
We will probably do that at some point.
I'm up to tier 3.
What is the... anything... I'm
I
gonna...
just recently
I am
caught up
going
on
to...
$31.99.
There we
I was really
go.
confused about the ending at the moment.
Funny tripods go funny things. Anyway. 9681 asks, why has the USN so quickly switched from the Flight 3 Burke to the Flight 3A Burke? Probably because they needed to put some systems in. And the change was significant.
I'm actually confused about that.
And the
I
change...
have yet to find anything that is called a Flight 3A.
I'll have a look. But if it has happened and it's happening, then I would guess it's because the design change is significant enough to be a difference from the Flight 3s in a significant way, but not so different as to be a new flight by itself. Similar as like we had the same thing with the Flight 2 and Flight 2As.
The only thing I found so far is that some U.S. admirals were saying you are unlikely to see anything past 3A or Flight 3 because the Burke hull just cannot hold anything more now by this stage.
Wow, it's almost as if hull growth has been reached. Shocking revelations,
Yes.
I know. Still doesn't mean still,
This US Admiral's a coward. I know they can fit quite a bit more on that hull.
and also politely, just because Hull is grown to a point where it is, doesn't mean Burke will still not kick the shit out of you, the thing you're hiding behind, the thing you're hiding in front of, the two things behind it, and the two things behind them.
There's
Burke-
also technically nothing stopping them from just extending Burke.
Honestly, you could. You could actually section the Burke hull.
I don't
And-
know why they don't just make big Burke DDG as DDGX.
It would be
If they're so keen on Burke, just make a bigger Burke. Make a 12,000 ton Burke, for fuck's sake.
honestly, you could. Honestly, if the Trump class gets built and /or cancelled and DDGX isn't ready to replace it, you might see a Burke replace it. There is only Burks.
Yeah, because it's the crab of the DDGs.
Darkness of the future.
Yeah,
There is only
I mean,
back.
I mean, yeah, Burke is like emperor of mankind. So I've reunified Terra. The oceans are all gone. What's that? It's a thing. We found it. Who was
It's a
using it?
Burke.
Who was using it? Technobarbarian. It's on tracks. Yes, I know. Why is it on? Because there wasn't no ocean. Okay. Yeah. Okay. One more thing. Yes. That's a fucking Burke, isn't it? Yeah. Markador's like, yeah, it's a fucking Burke. And Markador and Em's like, fuck's sake, why is that thing still fucking here?
As
Burke's
you
the
cannot
only thing
beat
that
the
will
Burke
outlast a
fleet.
buff.
It's too much Burks. The Burke's just
A
here.
Burke will outlast a buff.
Too
The
much
Burks-
Burke sounds like
the
you're
Burks-
a weak coward.
The Burke's just always here. Right, so, thank you very much everyone for coming. As per normal, it's now time for the post-Ramblings game night. I can't remember what I was going to do tonight. I think...
Project Stardust.
No.
Yes.
No, I don't like Project Stardust. It's not something I really enjoy, if I'm going to be honest with you.
But
I only
Why?
played it on stream because it was voted for, and I put the vote in because it was popular. I don't like it. It's not the sort of thing I really enjoy.
get the fleet. It's funner with friends.
I-
Unironically.
I don't really enjoy it. There's a reason I don't play World of Warships anymore. I don't really enjoy it.
He doesn't like the World of Warship formula.
I used to, but I don't anymore. And yeah, well, on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care, and